Hello my friends and welcome back to my channel. Today we are starting the SUMMERWEEN series, which I am super excited about. Starting out, we are going to make some ghost art just using one of these Dollar Tree wood plaques. I do highly recommend sanding this down before painting it, but once I gave it a light sanding, I painted it with 2 coats of some black chalk paint. To make the ghost, I'm going to use some spackling and a little putty knife. There's really no wrong way to do this. Just have fun with it and make a little ghost shape. Now, as you might notice, I did move my ghost over a little to the left side of this plaque, and that is because I'm going to be adding some flowers on that right side. So just continue working your little ghost until you have it shaped exactly like you want it. And don't forget, you can just remove excess or any mistakes of this before the spackling dries. I let this dry overnight for about 24 hours, and then once that spackling was hardened, I went back in with some of that black chalk paint and just painted over any of the lingering spackling where I scraped it off. And of course, I added some little eyes to the ghost as well. And like I said, I wanted to add some little dried flowers over to the right side of this. So I just picked a few out of my stash and tied them together with a little bit of gold floral wire, then just used a little bit of gel super glue to attach it. For this project, I wanted to make a crystal ball, so I'm actually just using an old lamp base. I just took the lamp apart and used the base for this. And I'm also using one of the large clear Christmas ornaments from Dollar Tree that I just had in my stash. And it worked out because this fits perfectly down in this lamp base. This project's super easy. Basically, all I did was paint that base black to give it more of a Halloween style, and once it was dry, then I went over it with a little bit of European gold rub and buff to bring out all of those pretty details on this lamp base. I set that aside to let that rub and buff dry while I'm working on this crystal ball. Now for this, I wanted to give it a little aged look, make it look a little cloudy and smoky. So all I did was mix up a little bit of black acrylic paint with some water and a drop of Mod Podge, then just swirl it around inside the crystal ball, flip that over, and let it completely dry. For the inside of the crystal ball, I just printed a skull off of Google onto some of this transparency film that I got on Amazon. It's just clear sheets that you can use in your inkjet printer. To cut it out, I used a bowl and traced around that bowl with a dry erase marker, and then I'm just going to cut that out. This is approximately the size of that Christmas ornament. I did end up trimming it down just a little bit more, but be sure when you are cutting this, you leave a little tail of that clear paper there at the bottom. That's going to help you push this up into that Christmas ornament. All I did was just roll this up enough to fit it in there, and then used a craft stick to help me press it where I wanted it. I found this small little book vase at the thrift store, and it looked like someone had already started to paint it. So I figured this would be a fun little project for Halloween. I'm using some of this faux leather that I got from Amazon to wrap this and make it look kind of like a classic book. The first thing I wanted to do was add those little edges on the spine of the book that a lot of the classic books have. So I just used a little bit of some thick twine and I glued it to the spine of the book vase. Now this faux leather that I got from Amazon, it's self-adhesive and it's actually meant for furniture repair, so it is super sticky. What I did for this book to wrap it and prevent wrinkles is I started with the spine and only removed the protective paper in the center of it first, pressed my book vase down onto it, and then flipped it over. And I'm using this little bone folder tool. I have this for book binding, but it works really well to smooth out this leather fabric. It's also really helpful to smooth out those creases where I added the thick twine. Once I had the spine done, then I pulled off one side of the protective paper and then just carefully laid my book down and smushed it a little bit to get out any of the wrinkles. Then I used my Cricut scraper and just used that to help me guide this leather fabric onto the book. Now, one thing I forgot to mention is when I cut this fabric, I made sure that the bottom part just lines up with the bottom of the vase. But for the top part, I made it a little longer so that I could tuck it into the vase part. So right now I'm trimming that top part and then tucking each side down inside of the vase. Then I will go around to the spine where there's a little bit more fabric and tuck that down as well. For the excess leather fabric that comes around to where it looks like there's book pages on this vase, there is a little lip on the vase for the cover of it. So I just tucked it down in there and used a sharp razor to cut off the excess. Of course, since this is going to be a Halloween book vase, I wanted to age up where it looks like there's pages, just using a little bit of black acrylic paint and then mixing it with some brown acrylic paint, then just gently blending that with a paper towel. Then to blend it just a little bit more, I went over it very lightly with a little bit of some cream colored paint. For the actual design, I went into Canva and made this little ghost design, and I did use my Cricut to cut it out with some gold foil HTV. But even if you don't have a Cricut or you just don't want to use your Cricut, you can still do this project very easily. Just leave out a lot of the smaller design, but you can just cut out little ghost forms from some iron-on HTV. Or you can even paint onto this faux leather fabric. You could even just glue on a cute Halloween fabric to this book vase instead. For this project, we're going to be making a skeleton lamp. Now, I already had a 3-foot skeleton in my attic, so I just pulled one of those out and removed all of his limbs and his head. You could leave it as is, but I want to paint mine black, so I am using some Rust-Oleum satin black spray paint. Now, I should have taken it apart before I spray painted it, but I did take this outside and give it one coat of spray paint. So this project actually gave me a little problem. I did go to the thrift store and found a really skinny lamp that I had planned on just wrapping the skeleton spine around. But as it turned out, even though the lamp was really skinny, it was still just too big for the spine piece to wrap around. So instead, I decided to use a dowel and still use some of the parts from the lamp. And so I am not going to be using the electrical for this lamp. Instead, I'm just going to use a puck light and the base from the lamp and then the little light holder just so I can hold a lampshade. Now, like I said, I had already taken the skeleton apart, so all I had to do to put it back together was just snap it back together, and it also had screws in it, so it was really easy to just wrap that around the dowel and then screw it back together. I did end up adding just a little bit of gel super glue in some places where it wasn't quite sticking together with the screws, and then I just took this right back outside and gave it a couple coats of the black spray paint.